So let's get into some playoff talk. We're just going to mention some players of note that have some relevance, or I personally don't think that you should be buying based off playoff performances in almost all cases, but I think you can take advantage of selling. And I think there are some interesting narratives to talk about, some interesting player details that I thought we should cover here. So we're going to be going back and forth, starting with the Rangers. So all four teams clinched tonight. Kind of weird in this first round of the playoffs. So it makes things a lot cleaner. So we don't need to cover the Rays or the Brewers, etc. So first team, Rangers. Evan Carter has been on fire. 2020 Bowman draft. You can get his first card from that product, and you don't have to worry about a mega first because they don't have them for draft yet. You didn't have to worry about the light product for that year because that was introduced the year afterwards. And one of the nice things about Evan Carter right now is you can sort of take advantage of temporary supply being reduced because he doesn't have Topps rookie cards out. But Evan Carter was a guy who's been a top 20-ish prospect for a while, outfielder. And the knock on him was power displayed in games. He had the eye, the batting average, the ability to hit doubles, but home runs weren't really there yet. So it's nice to see him showing power early. I think he was called up in September. So Josh Young is another one that at some point had probably a path to be American League Rookie of the Year. But after his injury, he missed some time with injury. And then after that, he struggled. Looks like a 229 average in the second half. He's another guy that's very interesting. And I think Carter and Young are hitting 8th and 9th in that lineup. Pretty scary. Anything about the Rangers, DPZ?
I mean, I don't like the Rangers only because their pitching is so weak. I think they got great bats. I mean, Evan Carter has come alive. Obviously he has a bright future. Garcia, he keeps going. They got a great lineup. Seager, it keeps going. Their pitching, I believe pitching in the playoffs is what's going to get you there. I mean, offense is great, but your pitching is what's going to get you there. The Orioles are one of the better teams in the American League. They have one of the best. They're amazing at the plate. You've got Gunnar Henderson. He's a superstar. And after a slow start in June, he's actually emerged as one of the best players and never looked back, really, honestly. He led Baltimore in OPS at .814. Led him with homers to 28 home runs. I think 6.3 wins above replacement right now. That's a player right now I think I would be looking at Gunnar Henderson right now. I think if he has a strong postseason, that can mean a lot for him. But I just don't think the pitching is going to be there for the Rangers. And I think the Orioles are just going to overmatch him.
Yeah, so I agree with you with Gunnar. So first of all, Orioles, probably the most exciting young team in baseball.
Easy.
For me, I was happy that two of the three, between the Orioles, the Reds, and the D-backs, the teams that I perceive to be some of the more newer, not a whole lot of recent playoff experience or success. A lot of young bats on all those teams. I wanted a couple of those teams to make it. So it's nice to see them come in and for the D-backs to advance on the back of Corbin Carroll. Orioles, yes, Gunnar Henderson, 6.3 BWAR. Love it. I was actually surprised to see that. I think on Fangraphs it's just below 5 or right around 5, which I tend to look at a little bit more, but still 6.3 BWAR for a dude that he was compared to Corbin Carroll because they debuted at around the same time. The prices were similar for a while. Gunnar had pulled away because of size, because of power expectations in the fourth quarter of last year. And then it wasn't until actual performance showed up for Carroll where he really took off and left Gunnar in the dust. But at this point, Gunnar, he does it all. Might not be as quick as Corbin, but he's gotten a good walk rate, about 9% for a rookie, which isn't bad. And he plays half his games at shortstop, which is awesome. So let's see if he continues to do that. Still half his games at third base. Not the best sign for a younger player, but Gunnar is a guy that I'm actually a little bit curious about too. Kind of want to do a little bit of research and see where his prices are. How much of a hit has he taken since where his prices peaked, which is probably I don't know, was it this past January? Was it last August? I'd have to look. Adley, On the topic of Orioles, so we've talked about Adley a little bit on a previous episode. He gets a lot of credit for the turnaround in this team. Like, kind of correlates with when he was called up in late May of last year. That's when the team started to really improve on their winning percentage. This year, they won 101 games. Like, I expected them to finish ahead of the Red Sox, but I don't know if it was by this much with the pitching, as you had mentioned. So K rate of 13%, walk rate of 15%, amazing for a second-year player. But his WAR last year was about the same as this year, so right around 5. But he had like 40 to 50% more plate appearances this year. So this is a catcher, but he gets a lot of time at DH. So that's why they're able to keep him in the lineup. OPS was right above 800, as you mentioned. Gunners was probably just a little bit higher. Adley, 20 home runs this year. Like, I want to see a little bit more from him. I'm more impressed at this point by Gunner's bat, but again, K and walk rates way better for Adley. Gunner's striking out about 25% of the time. All right, so you mentioned pitching and how that was important. Let's talk about the Phillies that I think have two great aces. Bryce Harper has come on strong recently. I looked at his OPS. Is it above J-Rod? So we were knocking J-Rod's OPS in the one of the last episodes, and you see Harper, who was like terrible, not hitting any home runs, but he was walking, right? And his OPS is north of 800 because of it, and he's come on strong recently, and you've got to wonder, like, is he fully back to health? And we sort of saw something similar last year where he was dealing with some stuff, and then he went on a tear for the playoff run there. So Harper's a guy that's interesting to watch. I think a guy that can garner a lot of attention in the playoffs. Trey Turner is interesting. So he has always been a guy that's he hasn't really come through much in the clutch. If you look at career postseason stats, so he's got over 200 plate appearances in the postseason, and he has a 634 OPS. It's gotten better lately, like this year so far, in like a couple games, right? And last year, he was good. And if you look at the WBC, he had that game-winning home run, I believe. So, I mean, maybe he's put that behind him. Anything with the Phillies?
No, I don't really feel like they can match up with the Braves. I think the Braves. Here's the thing with the Braves that I love: their starting pitching is incredible. They got 3: Fried, Strider, Elder. You can even think right. Pitching is what's going to get you there, and you got dynamic players like Olsen and Acuna on the other side. Albies is a solid player. Your offense, and you have this terrific defense and starting pitching. I just don't see how there's any way the Phillies can overcome the Braves. The Braves are just stacked, so much talent, and the pitching is what's going to really help them get there. Because when offenses slow down in the playoffs, the pitching takes you home. That's what keeps you in the games. That's what wins the games. They've got pitching all the way through. So I feel like the Braves, it's not even – I don't feel like the Phillies can get there. I mean, Bryce Harper's – he's a terrific player. He's a big player for the stage, which, you know, we talk about Trout and all that stuff. Bryce Harper has really stepped up. He's become a bigger player in the biggest stages. So I'm excited for him. It's great to have him in the playoffs, but I just don't see it. I mean, the Braves are going to take him. I don't think it'll be a long series.
Yeah, well, I think there is a path for an upset, and it's because of health of their frontline starters with the Phillies. It's Zach Wheeler, it's Aaron Nola. They both look pretty good right now. Aaron Nola looked pretty good tonight. He can be a little wishy-washy sometimes, but with Atlanta, they do have some names like you had mentioned with pitching, but Spencer Strider, he pitched himself out of the Cy Young contest in August and September. He was right up there with Blake Snell and others. Zach Allen at the time also had a rough September. Strider last year, he had sort of faded. He was dealing with an oblique injury, I think, and he gave up that crucial situation home run to Rhys Hoskins, the fist pump.
Yeah.
So this year, like in my head, I had him like tapped out at about 175. Like you don't really want to see like a 30, 40 inning jump or anything more than that from one season to the next. Especially if that first season was around 130 innings. So I'm a little worried about Strider's ability to hold up. Is it really going to need to like lean on him because I don't think Kyle Wright is right. He's been getting lit up a lot. So Fried, that's a lot of pressure on Fried. What they're going to do, and they're going to have to do what they've done throughout the entire season, is not rely on any sort of close game situation. Not that the Phillies have a lights out bullpen. I'm not sure if they do or not, but they're going to have to out hit the other team. They're going to have to outslug them, and they probably will. And if you look at lineups, Phillies versus Braves, it's a pretty clear. There's a pretty big gap between the two, and it's like the 6 through 9 or 5 through 9, where the Braves have like Michael Harris, who hits ninth half the time, versus the Phillies, who, yes, they've got Schwarber, who's actually pretty clutch. They've got Castellanos, bounce back year. They've got Turner and Harper. I do think the Braves advance, but pitching has folded up too.
The Braves have a more complete team. Phil, the outright leader in runs, hits, home runs, RBIs, stolen bases, total bases, wins, strikeouts, total team. The Braves they're just the best team. They're the best team in the league. Yeah.
They're still hot, right? It's not like they faded in the second half.
They're still really good.
So it often is the team that's the most hot heading into the playoffs, and that's why there's actually a lot of wild card teams that end up winning the World Series more than you think. Probably every other year, it seems like it.
Yeah.
But this is probably a year where the Braves get to the World Series, if not win it. All right,
they've been there, obviously. So yeah.
All right, yeah. Let's talk about the D-backs next. Corbin Carroll's team, another clutch hit today, broken bat double. 91% success rate stealing bases this year, which is very impressive. Of course, he got thrown out in game 1 against a left-handed pitcher, but for a rookie, it's something you really like to see, especially when the volumes are that high, 50-plus stolen bases. So the D-backs to me are a very young and exciting team. It's too bad Jordan Lawler probably didn't make the cut to be on the roster, I'm guessing, because I haven't seen him appear yet, and he's struggled mightily in the couple weeks that he had where he debuted in the big leagues. Any thoughts on the D-backs?
I think the D-backs. What's that?
Probably get knocked out quick by the Dodgers.
I think the D-backs are an exciting young team, but I feel like, again, the Dodgers are a more complete team. They're more seasoned. They're a fuller, the complete package. Pitching, middle relief, closing. The talent's just there. Their lineup is. I've had conversations with people in the league and that are very familiar with the Dodgers hitting coach and the whole hitting system that they put in place. Big swings, swing and misses, but big swings. The Dodgers, just institutionally are built to win. Obviously losing Seager's a big deal. You missed that, right? You're losing Bellinger, but I feel like they still came back. The pitching is, again, really solid for them. You lose Arias. That's not, that hurts you a bit, but they still picked it back up. Watching them play in the stretch, and I've watched them play in person 2 games this year. That is a very, very complete baseball team. Again, like the Braves, I'm not going to give you stats right now. I'm going to give you the eyeball test. I watched them play. Better team. They outplayed us. Seattle Mariners, they outplayed us. It was obvious they're a playoff team. And talking to some of the players on the Mariners, that's a World Series team. They got it all put together. Dave Roberts is a world-class manager. I think it's the Braves and the Dodgers and the NLCS. That's going to be a terrific series to watch. I think as a baseball fan, that's going to be a treat. It's a rematch. You love watching it, but. And again, we go there. If I'm jumping to there, I still see the Braves overcoming them because I just think they have more talent, more young talent. But in the pitching, I know you disagree with me on that, but I think the pitching will come through. I think Wright's going to see a resurgence. He's going to lift his game to another level, and I think the Braves, overcome even the Dodgers. But yeah, the Dodgers are a bigger team. The Diamondbacks, though, are a very exciting team. I think you've got some pieces there. I think Corbin Carroll obviously is a terrific young player. They got Paul Sewald with their closer from the Mariners. He's a really, really, really good piece. Hate to lose that guy. They're going to they'll put some pressure on the Dodgers. I just don't see them overcoming them as a full team.
Yeah, with Zach Allen the way he's currently pitching, I don't think they really have a shot. I mean, they had Brandon Pfaadt. What did he have, like a 5 ERA this year? They had him lined up against Corbin Burns in game
Yeah.
one. And if it wasn't for Brandon Woodruff being out for the series, you'd have to wonder if the outcome would have been different. In some clutch hitting from the Arizona side, lack of clutch hitting on the other side, base running mistakes. So that didn't help the Brewers, but the Dodgers aren't going to be making those same mistakes.
Yep.
I don't necessarily agree that Dave Roberts is a great coach. I think he's more of a mouthpiece. But the team itself, it's professional. They don't make stupid mistakes. They're the closest thing to the late 90s Yankees, where sort of like
true.
the New England Patriots, they make other teams.
Good comp.
They punish other teams for their silly mistakes. Like that
Right.
turnover late in the fourth. It's like, oh, shouldn't have done that. Patriots are going to take this now.
Very good comp.
They used to, like, there's this thing, like this saying, like, why do the Yankees always win? Because people are always looking at their pinstripes. Like they're just like cut above all the other teams.
Yeah.
And at the time, Yankees management probably deserve a little more credit than, in my opinion, Dave Roberts deserves. But anyways, yeah, Dodgers. I mean, what is there to say? I mean, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, great players. Will they continue to cannibalize themselves like they did during the regular season? Not that Mookie Betts was going to win the MVP anyways, but that Freeman campaign, in my mind, up till like Olsen kind of emerging, it was like, oh, you're really doing your best to make sure that Mookie doesn't get it, just to like split votes from a MVP perspective. Mookie Betts does not have a World Series MVP. I think he was close to winning it in 2020, but Corey Seager won that we already mentioned. All right, so next up, let's talk about the Twins. Advanced 2 games. They ended a 21-year playoff series drought. Very impressive. Royce Lewis just turned 24, 15 home runs this year, and under 250 plate appearances, 300-plus average. The slash line is impressive. This was a guy that was formerly a top 5-ish prospect. A lot of people forgot about. Middle infielder, not your typical small, kind of fast twitch middle infielder, although he did have speed at one point. Now he probably doesn't run as much because of the risk of re-injuring his lower half. But he does have a lot of pop. And the average, I mean, that's been impressive this year, albeit not in a full season, still close to 250 plate appearances, 300-plus average. 2, 3 home runs already in the playoffs. I forget. But in one of the last episodes where we talked about, and I have an episode that's just specifically devoted to the whole playoff thing and hype and everything like that. I think that there are certain players that fit the mold to be a candidate to get not just a pop in the playoffs from individual accomplishments, but potentially some sustaining attention and higher prices, a higher floor, buzz that can continue into spring training. I think we saw it with Wander Franco.
Right.
We saw it with Jeremy Pena, but that was almost like a boom bust sort of thing because he did so much. But what I'm saying is, like, if Royce Lewis continues to do what he's doing, this is a guy that hasn't had a whole lot of national recognition yet. Not a lot of people watch Twins games, even though Franco had the recognition technically as a prospect. Not a lot of people had a chance to see him maybe till the playoffs. So with Royce Lewis, he's the type of guy I think that actually could, if his prices haven't come up yet, which I'm sure they have, I could see them staying up and maybe even going up higher once people realize a little bit more about him. Like, oh, the pedigree's there. Oh, he's 24. I mean, that's old in prospect years and rookie years, but it's still younger than where probably Goldschmidt started and Aaron Judge started. So they turned into great players with hobby appeal. So I don't know, Royce Lewis, and somebody actually commented on that video that I posted. I'll bring up the comment. Does Royce Lewis make sense as a guy that could get buzz because of broadcasting his skills on a global scale and people not really understanding what they were working with yet, and him kind of taking them by surprise? I think he does. I answered he's absolutely that type of player that could do that, and he showed up.
I mean, I'll use a comp for him. Randy Rosarina, a couple of years ago. That's who I see Royce Lewis. That's what he has, that opportunity to take advantage of the stage to kind of launch himself into something more sustainable. if he stays healthy, right? He's older, as a prospector, you don't really love the older guy, right? He took a long time to get there. Anybody who's still hanging on to their Royce Lewis bag, I mean, good for you. I don't know how many of you are out there, but I mean, you kind of stole my thunder, brother. That's where I was going to go on the Twins. I thought Royce Lewis had an opportunity as a card, as a player. You can kind of go, hey, there's an opportunity there. Or folks that are actually still hanging on to some stuff, there might be an opportunity for a departure or an exit for you. Here's what I'll say about the Twins, though, as a team. I think their starting rotation, AL leading 3.82 ERA. So you got Pablo Lopez, who's one of the hottest pitchers in baseball in the second half of the season, going 6-3 with 2.79 ERA, 89 strikeouts, and 77.1 innings over his final 13 starts. What that tells me is you got great pitching going into the stretch, which is what you're seeing now. They quickly dispatched the Blue Jays, and now they're on to the next. Okay, now it's the Astros, right? But
Good
you
luck.
got Sonny Gray. Well, I know you got Sonny Gray. And so, I mean, Sonny Gray and Pablo and Lopez was one of the better 1-2 punches in baseball this season. If there's a team that can challenge the Astros with that momentum, it's the Twins. I think they do. I think they beat the Astros, and I think they represent well against the Orioles. And I think the Orioles and the Minnesota Twins and the ALCS is going to be the best, most talked about series in baseball in 2023. No matter who wins that series, I think it's going to be the most exciting one because you get these two teams that were they're not really considered to be there. I mean, nobody thought they would be there, right? Orioles are ahead of schedule. Twins, like, they're kind of always there, but they never really win in the playoffs, right? They're both there. Royce Lewis is this new story. You got great pitching. These mid-market teams, Baltimore, Minnesota. And let me give you a stat. I got to pull it up because I couldn't save everything in front of me, but I've got the stat I wanted to mention about attendance. So there's an average median team's attendance has been the highest since 2007 this year. And of all the teams that led the way was Cincinnati Reds, followed up 46%, followed by the Orioles and Cleveland Guardians, up 42%. Small market teams have more people going to the games. Baseball is a regional sport, regional market sport. It's one of the only sports that can live that way, right? Other than college football. It's a regional market sport. You got some of these smaller market teams that are leading the way. The Mariners are even up, even though they just killed us with, not really caring at the last 3 or 4 games. But that's exciting for me for baseball. Obviously, attendance is up like 9%, I think it was, right? You correct me if I'm wrong. But
yes,
how exciting is Phil? How awesome is that? Is it to have the Orioles and the Twins in the ALCS like that? One really exciting young team with a lot of talent. You got Hayes, Henderson, Roshman, and then you've got this like, who the heck are the Twins team? Gray, Lopez, Royce Lewis. I mean, can Correa actually turn around his reputation? I mean, this would be the opportunity to maybe do it and become endeared to baseball fans for, I don't know if it's even possible because he used to be an Astro and the way he looks, everything I don't know if it's going to work, but still, yeah, there's an opportunity there for him. I think that will be the series for me. That will be, if that happened, and I think it will, that will be very exciting to watch.
Yeah. And you know what? They didn't win that many fewer games in the Astros during the regular season. So it's not like the teams on paper are that different. That the Twins, I forget how balanced
the Twins are a 2
schedules
seed. The Astros are a 2 seed. Twins are a 3 seed.
Yeah. I forget how many in-division games you still play. I know the schedules are more balanced, but that division is a bit weaker considering the emergence of Texas this year. Yeah, I don't know. So Correa, he does have the postseason sort of. He has that like behind it. He has that on his back already, like the postseason experience and dominance and clutch hitting from his time with the Astros. So he could show up big. I don't know if his stuff. I think at this point it's going to be more about like his regular season performance that drives his values going forward versus like playoff stuff, in my opinion. But then again, there are outliers, there are exceptions. But Yeah, the team's okay. I mean, Alex Kirilloff's a good player, and Royce Lewis. This isn't a fluke. He's been their best hitter for probably the last few months. So, in addition to that, Jorge Polanco is now healthy, I believe. Max Kepler's had a pretty decent season, 800 plus OPS, over 20 home runs. They've got some good bats. Timely hitting will be needed. Yohan Duran, they're really going to need to lean on that guy. Electric pitcher, throws 101, right? Like that could be one of the components that sets them apart from the Astros. Presley has been a bit more hittable this year. I don't know if it was like an early season thing, but I feel like he's been getting hit. He doesn't have like a sub-1 whip like he's had in most years, I believe. But yeah, I mean, like Sonny Gray almost won Cy Young, and as you mentioned, the other pitcher, Pablo Lopez, he's been good in first half too. He's been pretty solid. Maybe it was like a few like a cluster of starts in like May and June where like he got hit pretty good. But I mean, a lot of Twins fans are really sad they gave up Arias, but it looks like a good trade for both teams. And now the Marlins are eliminated. Yeah. Arias hit 354 this year or something like that. So yeah, I don't know, man. I guess we'll see. Moving on to the next team. We haven't talked about the Astros much. I guess they're the last team. So Astros, like this is why it's tough to like invest for the playoffs. Is if you look at the clutch hits from that organization over the last, since they've been good, since like what, 2017, they've come from Alex Bregman. They've come from Jose Altuve. They've come from George Springer and Carlos Correa, as we mentioned, no longer with the team. In recent years, they've come from Yordan Alvarez. They've come from Kyle Tucker. That's 6 dudes. It's so distributed. Any given series, it'll be 1 or 2 of them. Any given game, it'll be 1 of them. And you just never really know because they all have that clutch gene. Yordan Alvarez is just really, really good, and sometimes it translates. He's maybe the one guy that doesn't overperform for the postseason. He just performs like he normally does, which is usually good enough. But
good enough.
I mean, they've got a cast of characters. They were clutch before they were experienced. Now they're experienced and clutch. Whether they're cheating or not, they're still going to be a force to reckon with. And then, I haven't brought up too many pitchers, and this guy people are going to laugh at. You know what buccal fat is? It's like fat in your cheeks and jaw. Anyways, Framber Valdez has been super clutch in the playoffs in numerous years. He destroyed the Phillies last year. I'm pretty sure he was like very dominant against the Red Sox in at least one start the year prior. He dismantled the Rays in 2020. I mean, he's a very magnificent pitcher, and he's a guy that like doesn't get a whole lot of hobby appeal, but like at some point, I don't know. I mean, I would not spend more than $50 on him, but he might be a COM-C play, quick flip. I don't know. I just have a good feeling about him again. And of course, now they have Justin Verlander back. So where is the weakness for this team? Is it the back end of their starting rotation? Probably. They've had a lot of injuries this year. The pitcher that was a rookie this year, Hunter Brown, he kind of fell apart in the second half, I think. Lance McCullers, another injury-plagued year, right? So outside of those top 2, and they're going to really lean on 40-year-old Justin Verlander again. Hopefully he's able to kind of support that because I know he wasn't at his best last year. I think it's a 2021 repeat. I think it's this time Astros over the Braves. I think the Braves will do enough to get there with their hitting. It'll be interesting to see if they have enough to take down Astros pitching, which isn't set up to be as strong as some previous years because of depth. They have an older Verlander and Valdez, Luis Garcia, one of the guys that's out for the year with Tommy John, that was like a number 4 starter that they were able to lean on in the playoffs in the past. So I don't know, man. But I'm picking Astros over the Braves, which tends to be, if not Vegas's top favorite, the number 2 favorite, and their favorite matchup would be Braves over Astros.
Well, I'm going to pick. I'm picking the Twins to get to the World Series. I think the Twins will make the World Series, and I think the Braves will beat them there. But I think they're going to ride the momentum out. The Astros were old. I mean, you're leaning on Justin Verlander. I think the momentum is going to take over. Sometimes those wild card teams make it. This is not a wild card team, but I mean, the pitching is solid. And I think that you've got enough hitting there. You've got the experience of Correa in the playoffs. That's going to rub off on the whole group, the whole lineup. I think they get there. I think the moment's too big for them for the World Series, but I still think they make that run, and I think there's something to build off of there. I think the Twins fans have something to finally feel good about. I'm going to envy it and hate it the whole way through because I'm a Mariner fan that hasn't seen it, but, good for them. But that's my pick. Minnesota, Atlanta winning the World Series.
1991 repeat, just the opposite outcome. With Top Chrome Sapphire update, there are certain players that didn't get repeated from regular Sapphire to Sapphire update, and as a result, those cards that are only in update but not in regular Sapphire hold more value, but are also more important because it's their only Sapphire card, right? It's their only Sapphire rookie card. So Royce Lewis is one of those, and that might be one example of something I might try to look into to see if there's some sort of market inefficiency with that card and high grades. Issue with update Sapphires, they printed roughly double from a base card perspective versus the regular Sapphire, but you do have the ability to go after some of the parallels and stuff. So maybe I'll look into that. I don't know if he had autographs, but he might have. And if that's the case, maybe I look into some of those too. But I don't know. I'd have to look at his entire supply because it's not just the Sapphire stuff that cannibalizes other Sapphire stuff. It's all of the 10 Topps Chrome releases, most of which have what a lot of people consider right now investable cards that do hold value, that will still hold value in the long term, that could have at least some upside there. So the Ben Baller might not attract a lot of people and cannibalize a lot of other Topps Chrome sets, but you can make an argument that Logo Fractor and Cosmic would.